This is X. Well, not actually X, but X so that nobody's sentiments get hurt. You will know what I mean. He's an interesting yet strange character. What can be said about his life? It's not been on the bright side really. He has a simple haircut, ties a quirky bracelet around his wrist, and wears not so fancy clothes so as to attract, as a matter of fact, nobody's attention.
X is a school-going kid and like most high schoolers today, hates going there to his guts. There's a reason why he acts also sad and detached all the time. But what? Nobody could tell. He's not at fault here, you know. He's that character at work whom nobody likes. You get what I want to say. He doesn't have much conversation at school and he doesn't care much anyway. While in class, he sticks to scribbling in his notebook. One might suppose he's making notes, scribing what the teachers say. But I didn't say scribing, did I? I said scribbling, and by scribbling I mean moving up in haywire to make gibberish on paper. And most of his drawings weren't very positive. Not that anybody cared about it. One of the reasons X hates school is bullying. Bullying is like a very light demo version of whatever man has done for centuries. The strong oppresses the weak. The fittest survive. People are mean to each other. That kind of stuff. One day X was going to his class. Business as usual. When a few dominative kids blocked his path. They started teasing X, pulling his bag, passing mean comments, behaving like any normal bully would. Then suddenly one kid made his way to X's bracelet, snatched it and crushed it beneath his shoe. The kids laughed and cheered. Then one of them had a sniff of a guard roaming around. They all scattered away. X was in tears now. He remained sad and depressed all the time and carried a gloomy face everywhere. But he never cried. X held the broken bracelet in his hand. It was really special to him. His grandmother had given it to him on a deathbed. Tears rolled down his cheek. Tears of sadness, desperation, and anger. He released a loud scream of grief in the now empty ground, which nobody heard. Next morning, X was in his house, in his living room to be more precise. He still had tears in his eyes. Maybe something else had happened, or maybe he was still sad about the last day's events. He was in a haste to get out of his house when suddenly his eyes fell over a gun kept on the shelf. Now, I would like to tell you that X ignored the gun, took his bag and left for school like any other day. But that's not what X did. X took the gun, kept it in his bag and left for school. This is Anurag and that Prerna. Of course the names are made up. I won't give you the real names. Anurag is a sophisticated man. He has a muscular tone to his body, a classic watch around his wrist and wears shirts all the time. Like all the time. He works as a PPO. For those of you who don't know, PPO stands for Personal Protection Officer. A PPO directly protects the life of their client. In layman's words, a bodyguard. Anurag works day and night trying to keep his clients alive, most of whom are very important characters when it comes to politics and administration of the country. His job has very near calls almost every day. Under such pressure, anybody would be distraught about their emotional self, pushing people who care for them away from their life. And that's exactly what's happening in Anurag's life right now. Now, let's talk about Prerna. She's a smart lady who has made a stand in today's world. She wears glasses, does a hair bun, and has a tired look on her face. She works as a surgeon in one of the most reputed hospitals in the city. She studies along with doing her profession, because that's what doctors do. She works at day shifts and night shifts, trying to save lives. God's noble work. She stays too busy and hardly has any time for bullshits or her family. It's pretty clear they both are married and have a kid. They fight quite often. And one morning the topic of their argument was their son. Each blamed the other for neglecting his care. And they weren't wrong. How could they? They had been working so hard under so much stress. It was the other parent who was wrong. They had noticed their son's sadness though. But what they hadn't noticed was at that exact moment, someone was listening to what they said. Their son. Hearing all the things his parents said, the son dashed out of the corridor into the living room. Tears in his eyes. He wanted to leave the house, get away. And that's when he saw a gun. How about Dave? He looks like a lazy, easygoing sort of guy. Well, that's precisely what he is. He's careless, procrastinates a lot, and doesn't believe in the process of hard work. He is what you call a typical failure. Throughout his life, he has tried his hand at many jobs, like driver,
waiter, even a house cleaner, only to be kicked out of all of them. Right now, he is working as a security guard in one of the city schools. It was his dream job. He could lax all he wanted, gossip all day, sleep anytime. Nothing would happen. What could possibly go wrong in a school? One day, he was roaming around, basking in the sunlight, when he saw a group of boys in the middle of the ground. It seemed they were hitting a boy. Nah, they were just fooling around. Suddenly, all the boys but one ran away. Maybe they had a class. It wasn't Dave's job to take care of children. He did what he did best. Ignore everything. Next day, like any usual day, Dave wasn't at his assigned post. That day wasn't as normal as Dave had imagined, as a person with a gun in his hand moved across the empty guard post, heading towards the classroom section. How about Ram? He's a dashing young man with a grin on his face almost always. He's an extrovert, the life of a party, the confident guy. He's rich, and being rich almost always leads to being arrogant. Ram gets what he wants, no matter what. Naturally, he's a bully, or shall we call it being dominant, like he does. One day, Ram and his friends were roaming around, talking about girls, laughing at jokes, when Ram saw a boy passing by. Now that boy's face wasn't one of Ram's favorite sights, and so he decided to correct it. As he was in between his operation, he saw a weird bracelet on that boy's wrist. Naturally, Ram took it and broke it, and laughed away. A guard was around, someone said. Ram didn't want to get in any trouble. He walked away. The next day, Ram was attending a class. The door opened in between. Ram heard a shriek.